According to Statista, the Philippines is the country with the highest natural disaster risk. According to a 2022 study, it was given the disaster risk index of 46.82%. India followed with a disaster risk index of 42.3%. Located along the Pacific Ring of Fire, the Philippines is highly susceptible to seismic and volcanic risks. The country is also subject to the world record of typhoons every year. Climate change and pandemics are exacerbating those risks. With that, let me share with you this legislation that has been instrumental in shaping disaster management policies in the Philippines, ensuring the safety and resilience of its citizens in the face of various hazards. The Republic Act 1121, also known as the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. I am going to present to you what is the PDRM Act of 2010, who is involved in this act, and how this Republic Act governs our country. Senator Lauren Legarda was the primary author of Republic Act 1121, but the law was a collaborative effort involving various stakeholders, government agencies, experts, and advocates for disaster risk reduction and management in the Philippines. While specific individuals who contributed may not be mentioned in the law itself, it reflects the collective input and efforts of many individuals and organizations in its formulation. The Section 2 of the Republic Act, letter A, states that adopt a disaster risk reduction and management approach that is holistic, comprehensive, integrated, and proactive in lessening the socioeconomic and environmental impacts of disasters, including climate change, and promote the involvement and participation of all sectors and all stakeholders concerned at all levels, especially the local community. The Section 2, letter N, states that develop and strengthen the capacities of vulnerable and marginalized groups to mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from the effects of disasters. The Section 2, letter B, states that provide maximum care, assistance, and services to individuals and families affected by disaster, implement emergency rehabilitation projects to lessen the impact of disaster, and facilitate resumption of normal social and economic activities. Before, Presidential Decree number 1566 is the one that governs the communities when there is a disaster, but the legislation itself only focuses on the disaster response kapag nangyari na. So, Republic Act 10121 was enacted in 2010 to address the need for a more comprehensive and proactive approach to disaster risk reduction and management in the Philippines. It repealed the Presidential Decree number 1566 and replaced the National Disaster Coordinating Council with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council as a focal body. So the law also aims to reduce the country's vulnerability to natural and man-made disasters and to enhance its disaster resilience. Let us now move on to the Section 5, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or the NDRRMC. NDRRMC is the highest policy-making body for disaster risk reduction and management in the Philippines. They are responsible for setting policies, coordinating efforts, and monitoring implementation of disaster management plans. NDRRMC is an organized body of government agencies to include the accredited civil society organizations and private sector that is mandated to undertake DRRM functions from the national to local levels. The NDRRMC is headed by the Department of National Defense, together with the Department of Interior and Local Government as the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Preparedness, the Department of Social Welfare and Development as the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Response, the Department of Science and Technology as the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Prevention and Mitigation, and the National Economic and Development Authority as the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Rehabilitation and Recovery. I know that most of you are familiar with NDRMC because this office had been always texting us whenever there is a disaster in our area. Say, for example, when there is a typhoon, the office has been always updating us about the status or the signal number of the typhoon in our area. It acts as the top coordinator of all disaster management and considered as the highest allocator of resources in the Philippines. The NDRMC as well are the ones who make the NDRMF and the NDRMP. National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework provides for comprehensive, all hazards, multi-sectoral, interagency, and community-based approach to disaster risk reduction and management. NDRMF is the principal guide or like the manual of operations to disaster risk reduction and management efforts that envisions a country of safer, adaptive, and disaster resilient Filipino communities toward sustainable development. National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan is a document to be formulated and implemented by the Office of the Civil Defense that sets out goals and specific objectives for reducing disaster risk together with related actions to accomplish these objectives. The NDRRMP covers four thematic areas, namely 1. Disaster prevention and mitigation, 2. Disaster preparedness, 3. Disaster response, and 4. Disaster rehabilitation and recovery, which correspond to the structure of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council wouldn't be able to execute their disaster risk reduction management strategies alone. This law is following a tiered response from National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council to Regional Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council and Local Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. The Regional Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council is responsible to coordinate, integrate, supervise, and evaluate the activities of the local disaster risk reduction management councils. And as per Section 10, it is stated that the RDRMC shall be responsible in ensuring disaster sensitive regional development plans, and in the case of emergencies, shall convene the different regional line agencies and concerned institutions and authorities. And as per Section 11, or the organization at the local government level, it is stated that the existing provincial, city, and municipal disaster coordinating councils shall henceforth be known as the provincial, city, and municipal disaster risk reduction and management councils. The barangay disaster coordinating councils shall cease to exist and its powers and functions shall henceforth be assumed by the existing barangay development councils, which shall serve as the LDRMCs in every barangay. Very self explanatory. So, in this law, the LDRMCs plays a crucial role. Think of them as the first responders in a community when a disaster is about to strike. Their job is essential in ensuring the safety and well being of the people living in the community. They assess the situation, coordinate evacuation plans, and provide vital information to residents, ensuring everyone knows what to do to stay safe. Their expertise extends to disaster risk reduction strategies such as identifying vulnerable areas, implementing early warning systems, and capacity buildings and trainings to keep the community well prepared. The NDRRMC, the RDRRMCs, the LDRRMCs, the LDRRMOs, the BDRRMCs, and the SK Council shall encourage community, specifically the youth participation in disaster risk reduction and management activities, such as organizing quick response groups, particularly in identified disaster prone areas, as well as the inclusion of disaster risk reduction and management programs as part of the SK programs and projects. So the public sector employees shall be trained in emergency response and preparedness. The training is mandatory for such employees to comply with the provisions of this act. So, participatory governance. Very self explanatory that It outlines the responsibilities of various government bodies and councils in promoting community involvement, especially among the youth in disaster reduction and management activities. It emphasizes the need for quick response groups in disaster prone areas and the integration of disaster risk reduction program into the activities of the SK Council. Additionally, it mandates training for public sector employees in emergency response and preparedness to ensure compliance with the relevant laws and regulations. So, to conclude, a quote by John F. Kennedy succinctly captures this importance. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. This emphasizes the need to prepare for challenges before they strike, a principle at the heart of effective public administration and disaster management. Republic Act 10121, the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, holds a great significance for us public administration students, for it exemplifies the crucial role of proactive governance in addressing disasters. My report for disaster governance, Republic Act 10121, the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010.